Hello, everyone, and welcome to the AI and Machine Learning Summit 2020. I would like to begin by thanking Unicom for the opportunity to interface with the community of IT and consulting professionals, developers, business experts, analysts, and academicians. It's a pleasure to speak on the topic of natural language understanding in the era of deep learning, and I would like to leave you with tons of excitement to explore the field further. I'll mostly refer to NLP throughout the talk as that's a broader field composed of natural language understanding and natural language generation. Natural language processing or NLP is sophisticated and challenging. However, with deep learning, NLP applications have got an unprecedented boost of performance. In many ways, deep learning has ended the second AI winter and revolutionized interest from the ML community, first through computer vision and then very recently in NLP by surpassing human accuracies and then setting new benchmarks every fortnight. In 2020, OpenAI just recently released GPT-3, of which many experts who have early access have quoted that it feels as if a god has woken up. But what is GPT-3? And what is BERT, which is considered as the ImageNet movement of NLP? Today, we will go through the core building blocks that shaped these recent advancements and some tools and tips for you to navigate the innovation landscape. I am Sangram Sabat. I have donned multiple hats as an entrepreneur, product manager, tech consultant, and operations strategist. I have led large or critical automation projects in CPG, BFSI, and consumer tech at City and Fractal with both statistical and machine learning techniques. Some of my areas of work have been customer service monitoring, internal fraud, credit compliance, and so on. Currently, I am part of a team empowering the digital inclusion of billions of non-English users by eliminating language and UI barriers of technology through conversational AI. Our R&D lab, Salt Labs, matches the pace of some of the most relevant and renowned research labs like Mila Lab of Montreal, and we are doing pioneering work in low resource languages. We blog about our work and advancements in the field at the Dialogue, which you can read by going to medium.com/sarthi-ai. You can also reach out to me via these channels. I love solving problems and having insightful conversations, and I love assisting the community. So please feel free to drop a message, and I'll be glad to help. So let's begin. Since understanding and generating natural language are high-level indications of intelligence, the AI community has been particularly interested in empowering machines to understand, speak, and write natural language. The field can be thought of as the intersection of linguistics and AI, including computer applications. But before going to tasks, let's first understand the core tenets of language. Uh, the six core tenets of language first starts with phonetics. It is the study of speech sounds made by humans. Phonology is the study of phonemes, the fundamental perpetually distinct units of sound that make up different languages. Morphology is the study of structure of words and other meaningful units like suffixes and prefixes and the systematic relationship between them. A morphologist may be interested in the relationship between the word dog and dogs. Syntax is the study of how people put words into the right order so they can communicate something meaningfully. All languages have underlying rules of syntax. Semantics deals with meaning of language units like words and sentences, and semantics we are interested with words and what their real world concepts or objects they point to. Pragmatics is an even broader field that studies how the context of a sentence affects its meaning. Syntax and morphological rules make up grammar. The order of words is necessary to convey the intended meaning, as can be seen from the examples on the screen. Similarly, the context drives what a certain word would mean in different situations. For example, someone shouting fire has a very different meaning in a 21-gun salute than if they're sitting in a crowded movie theater. Uh, these concepts of language drive many different tasks that machines need to solve. We will go through some popular tasks and start with basic tasks like part of speech tagging or POS tagging. POS tagging is the process of labeling words with their part of speech categories like nouns, verbs, and prepositions. Semantic rule labeling is aimed at the characterization of elements to determine who did what to whom, as well as how, when, and where. The job of these basic tasks is to feed the downstream NLP tasks. So text classification once a task in which it is the activity of labeling natural language texts with relevant categories from a predefined set. Information retrieval helps in extracting structured information from unstructured text. Named entity recognition (NER) and co-reference resolution are popular tasks here. NER is the extraction of named entities, meaning people, organization, place, and so on from text. To understand co-reference resolution, think of a paragraph which mentions car, Porsche, and it at different instances. This could all refer to the same entity, that is the Porsche. Sentiment analysis is the recognition of sentiment of a speaker, whether positive, negative, or neutral. It is divided into document, sentence, and aspect level analysis. While the first two are self-explanatory, aspect level is where product or main actor is extracted first, and then the sentiment belonging to it is classified. In our current example, the aspect is car and then sentiment is negative. Machine translation is used to translate source content into target languages. It is a difficult task because languages can differ in their grammar, semantics, and pragmatics. Traditionally, this has required extensive pre-processing, huge memory usage, and word alignments until the first breakthrough was achieved in through neural machine translation in 2013. Question answering. In question answering, specific answers are sought from available documents. For example, the answer to who was the first Prime Minister of UK from Wikipedia corpus as Robert Walpole is a QA task. Document summarization fits into two categories, extractive and abstractive summarization. In the former, the goal is to identify the most salient sentences in the document and return the summary, whereas the abstractive summarization, the goal is to generate summary sentences from scratch. These may contain novel words that do not appear in the original document. Scores like Blue and Rogue are used here, but they are far from being good evaluation metrics, and the task itself has a long way to go. Dialogue systems are computer systems intended to converse with humans. They can be task-based, knowledge-based QA, or just chit-chat bots. Despite many advancements, this remains a very difficult task to solve as it encompasses many of the tasks we just talked about and makes use of the most finest of nuances that people tend to use in spoken language. Most deployed dialogue systems rely on expensive handcrafted manual features, and the generalizability is pretty low to other domains. Now let's look at deep learning. Deep learning is a machine learning technique meant to mimic the structure and function of the human brain through multiple layers of artificial neural networks. It stacks up a large number of such hidden layers of nonlinear processing to extract features from data and transform it into different representations. Deep learning processes humongous amounts of data and produces much better results than machine learning. However, it is computationally much more expensive in execution time, hardware costs, and data quantities. It has been accelerated due to the availability of increasingly powerful compute and vast amounts of data. Besides, crowdsourcing of rich labeled datasets has also been very beneficial. Uh, why deep learning with NLP? Handcrafting features is tedious and may need to be repeated for each and every task. They do not tend to generalize well. On the contrary, deep learning has, is famous for learning information from data and representation across multiple levels that can be leveraged by other areas through fine tuning or directly. The learning of features are not mutually exclusive, and this can help in deriving semantic interrelationships between words. Deep learning has also boosted unsupervised learning, and given the current scale of data, it is much more effective to go for unsupervised learning. The advantages of using learned representations to tasks directly or through fine tuning gave rise to transfer learning in NLP. Here, instead of training models for every task, huge models are trained on one problem and the acquired knowledge is then transferred to the other. For example, knowledge gained through learning German can be transferred to learning French as they belong to the same language family. Transfer learning has resulted in models achieving state of the art for many unsupervised, supervised NLP tasks, such as classification, information extraction, QA, etc. It is now important to touch upon some core concepts like language modeling, sequence to sequence models, and attention to understand the recent advancements. Language modeling. Language modeling means predicting the p theta text, that is the empirical probability of a text in any language, and also the empirical conditional probability of the text given other words. To understand this, think of your keyboard. It predicts the words as you type. This is an example of a language model. There are various advantages of using language models. First of all, they don't require human level annotation. Many languages have a lot of running text which can be used to build high capacity models. Uh, they learn both sentence and word representations from various objectives. However, modeling is a very difficult task even for humans. To have a chance to solve problems like your keyboard example, a model is forced to learn syntax, semantics, and whatnot. But given a reasonable amount of data and compute, the models will work well. Now let's come to word embeddings. So word embeddings is the collective name for a set of language modeling and feature learning techniques in natural language processing, where words or phrases are from the vocabulary are mapped to vectors of real numbers. So models understand words as vectors. You can represent almost anything as a vector. Like for example, if you want to represent a person through personality embedding, scores uh, for each of the big five personality traits can be assigned across the respective dimensions, and then they can be transformed into a -1 to 1 scale to form the personality embedding of the person. Almost everything can be represented as numbers, which is fantastic for models. You can also perform various similarity tasks or similarity tests simultaneously. For example, you can find out what people who like Obama also like through methods of similarity like the cosine similarity method. Um, in this example, we represent king through a embedding, just like we used personality embeddings along 5 dimensions. We have used 50 dimensions here. If we color code them, then we get a visual representation of the word. Similarly, other words can also be visually represented. You can see here that the man and king words are similar along some dimensions, whereas queen and woman are also similar in some dimensions, but man and queen are significantly different. So definitely some relationships are being learned here while forming the embedding. Such relationships can be exploited mathematically later on to arrive on new conclusions. For example, here king minus man plus woman. The result with the most score is queen out of the 400,000 other words that the model knows. Also, you can see that the output is not exactly equal. This means that there are other relationships as well that the model has learned. For example, royals might be a very good relationship that the embedding has learned here. Let's look again at the task of language modeling. Coming back to the keyboard example, the first let's keep the first two words of thou and shalt. They are converted to vector representations by looking up to their pre-trained embeddings. Next the two word vectors are calculated by the model, and it outputs probabilities for each word of the vocabulary. If the word with the highest score is not, then that is the prediction that will come in the keyboard. Uh, how is the language model trained? Words get their embeddings by us looking at which other words they tend to appear next to. If we are able to slide a window of certain number of words, we shall get many such groups of words that occur together and thus generate a training data. The model thus trained will be able to tell which words tend to appear together. For example, if I told you I saw Jay was hit by a red bus while I was coming to give this talk, and later in the speech I introduced a question, Jay was hit by a dash, most of you will obviously say bus. But if the question was modified further by adding two more words, dash bus in, then your answer might change. So that means that it is useful to look both ways for more context and therefore accurate predictions. So this is an example of CBA or continuous bag of words model where the current target word is predicted based on surrounding context words. Another method is skipgram where neighboring words are predicted given a single word. We slide the window again and each word now will generate four samples. Each slide of the window will change the middle word and generate four more samples, and so a training set will be generated. During the training, embeddings of the word not are taken, probabilities are calculated, and the model outputs a prediction vector of probabilities. Uh, since the training has just started, the predictions will be wrong. But after many iterations and updates, the model will finally learn to guess thou when it gets not as an input. However, the projection to output space is computationally intensive. We can do away with this by a technique called negative sampling. Here, what we do is we space out the model and we take the input and the output words as both as inputs and take a third column, which is basically classifying neighbors and not neighbors as 1 and 0 respectively. Uh, by doing this, we model the question as a logistic regression problem, and which is much more easier to calculate. This negative sampling and skipgram are the core concepts of what to get. Now let's go to sequence models. The easiest way to visualize a sequence to sequence model is looking at the neural machine translation illustration as shown below, shown here. Here we have two RNNs. One is the encoder and one is the decoder. The encoder processes each item in the input sequence, compiles the information into a vector called the context vector. Every time a hidden state is also taken with the input of the previous network, the hidden state carries representations of the previous word in the sequence. After processing the entire input sequence, the encoder sends the context over to the decoder, which begins producing the output sequence word by word or item by item, as can be seen here. However, there is one big inefficiency that the context vector has made it challenging for models to deal with longer sentences. So it became a bottleneck for tasks like dialogue systems, right? So we went with the attention architecture, where the encoder passed a lot more data to the decoder. Instead of passing the last hidden state, it passes all the hidden layers to the decoder. Again, there's a certain focus on the French translation of the word student, etudiant. This ability to amplify the signal from a relevant part of the input sequence makes attention models produce much better results than models without attention. But how is this focus achieved? So each hidden layer, as we know, has some resemblance to some input word. Matrix operations are performed to drown out less relevant words, by drowning out their corresponding hidden states. Uh, the thing here is repeated for all decoder steps. And if we had to visualize how the model is focusing its attention while outputting each and every word, we can look at the illustration here. Just because here we have everything sorted out beautifully doesn't mean the model is just serially paying attention. For example, look at the example here where the structure of European Economic Area and the corresponding French translation of the same are different in structure. Now that we know about attention, let's look at transformers. So transformers are stacks of encoders and equal number of decoders. The model uses attention to boost the speed of training. The transformers outperform Google neural machine translation model and come with parallelization, as various paths here, as you can see, can flow parallelly through the feed forward neural network. The encoders and decoders also use a technique called self-attention. So what is self-attention? Consider this example where the animal did not cross the street because it was too tired. What does it in the sentence refer to? Is it referring to the street or to the animal? Well, it's a simple question to a human, but not so simple for an algorithm. When the model is processing the word it, self-attention allows it to associate it with animal. As the model processes each word, self-attention allows it to look at other positions of the input sequence for clues that can help for a better encoding of the current word. Transformers use this technique to bake understanding of relevant words into the one they are currently processing. In the decoder layer, the self-attention layer is only allowed to attend to earlier positions in the output sequence, that is look to the left. This is done by masking future positions of the in the self-attention calculation. So the model here only learns only sees the left side of the sequence, and this technique is called masking, which is very important in many other architectures because it has been altered here and there to produce a lot of improvements. So these are the basic building blocks for all the different advancements that you have heard of, like BERT, OpenAI Transformer, GPT-3, etc. For example, OpenAI Transformer can be thought of as a decoder part of the transformer architecture minus the encoder decoder attention model. The OpenAI Transformer gave us a fine-tunable pre-trained model based on the transformer architecture, but the model lost its ability to look both ways, as we just saw. So in came BERT, or bidirectional encoder representation from transformers. They were composed of the encoder layers of the transformer. They were also trained on tasks to predict whether a sentence B immediately follows a sentence A, thus allowing BERT to better understand relationship between sentences. This advanced the state of the art in 11 NLP tasks, including achieving 93.2% accuracy on Squad 1.1 question answering benchmark dataset and outperforming human performance by 2%. Then came a string of models. First of all, it's Worthwhile to pay attention to GPT-2. GPT-2 follows the OpenAI transformer model with slight modifications and is trained on text scraped from 45 million web pages. It got state-of-the-art results in 7 out of 8 language modeling datasets, but it gave a necessary bottleneck as well. While BERT was a 350 parameter model, GPT-2 was a 1.5 billion parameter model. So language models were getting larger by the day, and that stressed the memory limitations of available hardware and led to longer training times. So Albert architecture then came in, which incorporated parameter reduction techniques to cope up with this. The Albert extra large configuration has only 60 million parameters and outperforms all of the state-of-the-art language models on many tasks. Then came Alibaba's StructBERT. It amplifies the ability of BERT's mass language modeling task. Further, the model randomly shuffles the sentence order and predicts the next and the previous sentence as a new sentence prediction task. On the Stanford NLI dataset, StructBERT outperformed all the existing approaches with a new state-of-the-art result of 91.7%. And very recently, we have GPT-3. So the OpenAI research team draws attention to the fact that need for labeled datasets for each and every new language task limits the applicability of language models. It uses the same model and architecture as of GPT-2, but has a different attention architecture. The model is evaluated in 3 different settings, where shorts mean demonstrations. In few short learning, there are 10 to 100 demonstrations at inference time with no weight updates. In one short learning, there is only one demonstration together with a natural language description of the task. And in zero short learning, the model only has the natural language description to take into consideration. The GPT-3 model, without fine-tuning, achieves promising results on a number of NLP tasks, even occasionally surpassing state-of-the-art models where they were fine-tuned for their specific task. Articles generated by this 175 billion parameter GPT-3 model are hard to distinguish from real ones. It will be hugely beneficial for tasks such as question answering and ad copy generation if someone distilled this. As per Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI LP, GPT-3 is overhyped and still has serious weaknesses and sometimes makes silly mistakes. We have a lot to still figure out. Well, I second that opinion. And although the field of NLP has exponentially grown over the past few years, our perception of the current ability is limited by something like the clever hands effect. Clever Hands was a magical horse in the early 20th century that could do some arithmetic and tell time, among other things, by tapping its hoof. However, it was later found out that the horse is actually picking up unconscious cues from its master. In our context, learners solving a task by learning the wrong thing has always been known for a long time. In fact, the authors of BERT had called their sota meaningless for a similar reason. The field of NLP is very hard and we have a long way to go, right? Some of the challenges in this field are low resource languages, where it's a known problem that English and Chinese have a lot of data, but there are thousands of other languages in Africa and the Indian subcontinent which have very less data. There are large and multiple documents where there are 2 problems that open up. One is that current models do not represent longer context well, and the second problem is that of supervision, which is scarce and expensive for such large-scale documents. Then comes ambiguity, where words are unique, but they have different meanings depending on the context in which they are used. Synonymy, another key phenomena of natural languages is the fact that we can express the same idea with different terms, which are also dependent on the specific context. For example, big and large can be synonyms for describing a building, but they are not interchangeable when describing age. Co-reference has been talked earlier. It is a notoriously difficult problem. Despite personality of the author can also affect how he expresses the idea, and even though sentiment analysis has seen big progress, we are still far from understanding pragmatics of text. To solve such problems, we need more innovators, attention, and investments. You can contribute to the field of research, but how do you go about doing it? Well, firstly, if you are going to solve problems of machine learning, deep learning in NLP, you got to know linguistics. You got to know the math that goes behind the algo. You got to be well versed in either TensorFlow or PyTorch. Both are frameworks for utilizing deep learning algorithms. Next, there are various tasks that you need to know to solve, for which you can, follow benchmarking sites like Glue, Superglue, etc. They are a good way to check the pulse of the field as well. You can also try out many datasets on Google Colab. Google Colab is a Jupyter notebook that can be used without any setup and runs entirely on the cloud. Read a lot of research papers, etc. I have left a lot of useful links here, which might be useful. And lastly, follow researchers and thought leaders of NLP on Twitter. To conclude, the good news is that NLP has made a huge leap from the periphery to the forefront of technology with more attention and faster and better innovation. The application of deep learning to NLP has started to yield results and can become the solution for open problems. But it is safe to say that the field will take just a little bit more time. Thank you for your time and attention and hope you enjoyed the talk. You can reach out to me at twitter.com/Sangram Sabat or follow our recent advancements in low resource languages at www.sathi.ai. Thank you for your time and have a great day. Cheers.